And then there were two. The next series of our Australian.com.au series of interviews features the legendary John Fahey. And the two I speak of, obviously, are our two riders next week going into the individual qualifier in Tokyo early next week, our time. Edwina tops Alexandra and the lovely mare Identity Bitterol, and of course, Katie Laurie and Casebrook Lamond. But I have the great pleasure to be talking to a gentleman who I think is right up there in potentially a national treasure, both of the country Australia and particularly the sport of show jumping. And I refer to John Fahey. Good evening, John. How are you?
Good evening, Martin. I'm very well, thanks, and getting excited about the jumping next week.
Fantastic. It has been a momentous 360 degrees, if I can call it that, because whilst we'll talk about Katie and Edwina a bit later on, but I would love just to bring your attention, or rather the focus of this interview towards yourself. 1964, the best part of 57 years ago. To me, looking at the story of John Fahey and the little horse, it was just almost like the man from Snowy River. You know, when I say that, Bonvale, was he quite 15 hands, or was he in fact about 14.3?
No, he was just a shade under 15 hands, Martin.
So, as I say, I think I've caught it right. The man from Snowy River meets the Olympics. Way back then, I can think of some of the riders that I've researched in my time, and we'll talk about the famous jump off for bronze with Peter Robeson. But again, John, 1964, we're very used to sports and athletes these days. The age is coming down, and by that I mean state of origin footballers making their debut at sort of 22, 23. That's still considered relatively young. Young riders in this country, 16 to 21 years of age. But I'm looking at a gentleman that at the age of 21 went to his first Olympics. He backed it up with the same horse, Bonvale, in Mexico 4 years later. But John, if we can just go back a little, how does a 21-year-old in those days get to take on the might of the world? Where did it all begin? Was it much to do with Father Tom? Was Tom a major influence with you?
Yes, Martin. My dad, Tom, was the greatest influence, a great mentor, a great trainer. And yes, he was my backstop and supported me. And when we bought Bonvale in I think around about 57 for about £550, was a lot of money then. Mm. And I can still remember competing at Sydney Royal in 1964. I won a 2 table A's, won the Australian Championships, run second in the Pearsons and third in the 6 bar. So he was a bit of an all-round horse. And that's how we trained him those days. You had to compete in just about everything. But after getting selected to go to Tokyo, we did a lot of training as a team down at Barrel with Franz Moringa and Carl Juranek. And we had 6 weeks in Canberra and then another 6 weeks in Brisbane in Albion Park. And we sort of trained together as a team. And I think we just gave each other the confidence that we can go there and ride and go well.
And did you ever feel the inexperience of a 21-year-old, or do you think that team bonding, that team building really gave you the confidence to take on the world?
Well, what I told myself, it was just like jumping in the Australian Championship at Sydney Royal or jumping in any big class in Australia. There's no difference. You're riding the horse that you've trained and got him to the level where you've got him at. And you just got to go out there and I always just took no notice of crowd or anything. I just concentrated on what was in front of me and tried to achieve and do the best I could.
Amazing. A modern day sports psychologist would have a field day with that. A 21-year-old, green as grass, leaves Australia on this wee little horse, Bonvale, who obviously, it's not the size of the dog, but the size of the heart and the dog and the pair of you. John, just on that also, with your training you mentioned, you didn't just excel in show jumping. You mentioned the all-rounder aspect of jumping a puissance at an Australian Championship. But you have a great record of gentleman riders and camp drafting. It's a pretty amazing career.
Yes, you could say that, Martin. I went on the road in 1966 and travelled from all the way from Sydney to Cairns, back to Melbourne, Victoria, and New South Wales again. And to survive, you went in every event that was on the card. And my father was a great camp drafter, a great novelty event rider. He did a bit of round the ring hunts in those days, but he never did any show jumping. But it was just a way of life that we did. And at Sydney Royal, I think I'd be the only rider that had ever won champion gentleman rider on the flat, champion show jumping rider in the World's Championship camp draft. At the one show, I think I did it twice.
That's why I call you a national treasure. It's amazing. Let's talk about the Olympics. These days horses fly around and we worry about travel sickness and one thing and another, but, invariably aircraft times are 1 or 2 days travel. So how long, John, did the actual journey take from Australia to Tokyo?
We were on the ship when we sailed out of Brisbane to Tokyo was 10 days. And on that trip, we had a makeshift sand roll on the top, and we used to lunge our horses twice a day to keep a bit of muscle on them. And we arrived there. Every horse travelled really good, and then we started training and preparing for the competition.
It's fascinating. And so then at the actual competition venue, how long did you actually have days-wise prior to jumping your first class?
I'm not sure. I'd say we would have been there for a couple of weeks at least, because the eventing team was we were there before. I think there was a similar format what it is today, and the show jumping was the last event.
So if we cut to the main individual jumping, John, I guess not many people realise that Pierre Jonquière Durola on Lutter actually won the gold medal, and Herman Schreider on Descent was second. And then you had this Peter Robeson from the UK who rode Firecrest. And from all intents and purposes, what I can tell is Peter Robeson was, if you like, the stylist of the class. Is one of those, like an Art Utendale. He was a professor-style rider. He was very much in that European mould and had a following of very much classic mold of show jumper. And then we've got yourself, the 21-year-old, on this 14.3 hand Bonvale. To my mind, it's just got imagery of romance. I know I get so caught up in the moment, but that's got absolute fairy tale stuff written over it. So you both jump off for the bronze medal. Is that how it all worked out?
Well, how it worked out, Martin, was we jumped in. We was the last event of the Olympic Games. We jumped in main stadium, which they've changed the format now. And I went around the first course, and anyway, we had a saddle cloth made, and I wanted to use it. They said no. Anyway, just before the water jump, the saddle cloth slipped back and he landed on the tape, and I finished with 8 penalties. The second round, he jumped the water clear, and I had an unlucky rail there. And if I hadn't have had that water jump the first round, I would have finished with 12 faults, and Herman Schreider won with 13 and a quarter, if memory serves me right. But yes, it was a difficult enough course in those days, and I've looked back at photos of some of the jumps, and there was 2 rails on the back of the oxes, which was unbelievable. And some of the fences, how they were built, they were quite big and quite massive.
Yeah, well, I remember famously in Montreal, I think the IOC got together and said we're probably jumping high and wide enough. Do you recall some of the dimensions of the fences that you were jumping?
Not really, Martin. I can't just tell you what heights and spreads, but they wasn't as big and as what like the limit is now, $1.60 and whatever it is the spread.
Yeah.
But they were pretty massive, big jumps. So they had plenty of spread on them. I know that.
Yes. Well, so in the end, we just missed out on a bronze medal, and you ran 4th. But John, since '64, your feat has never been beaten. You're still the number one man when it comes to performances at the Olympic Games from an Australian show jumping point of view. That must make you feel fairly proud of your performance.
Yes, Martin, it's a great honour, and I've said, I wish every other Australian rider that goes to the Olympics good luck. If you can get a medal, that's great, and I'll be the first one to congratulate you, the same as I've said to Edwina and Katie. Wish you luck and hope you can get a medal. And it's I know it's unbelievable to what I did when I was still 21 and went to England and competed in England and won 3 competitions in a row at Hickstead at the Easter meeting and at the Royal Show in England. Peter Roberts and I jumped off again, exactly the same as we did in Tokyo, and he rounded me up again. So he's a better rider, but he was a very, very stylish rider, and I'm very, very good friends with him over time, meeting him in England and champion.
I did hear that on the grapevine that you and Robeson, unfortunately, dear departed now, but you became quite strong mates, didn't you, after the Olympics?
Oh yes, very much so. Yes. Like after competing against Peter Roberson in Tokyo and then meeting him and competing against him in England, we become very good friends. I used to go and stay with him. Become very good friends.
Just on that, John, it's all again the width and breadth of John Fahey and your career. I mean, if I can just pull out some statistics beyond the Olympics, I mean, you've jumped in 100 FEI World Cup qualifiers. You've been Australian champion 5 times. You were recognised for winning the most World Cup qualifiers on the one horse. Which one was that actually? Was that Sorrento?
Sorrento, Martin, yes, Sorrento. Yeah. He won 19 World Cup qualifiers.
And you were recognised by Max Ammon and Olympic gold medalist Bill Steinkraus for that event. Amazing, John, amazing that you've done the Olympic, you've gone elsewhere in the world, and here you are, 100 World Cup qualifiers. I mean, you're a busy boy.
Yeah, well, it's over 100. I can't remember how many, but it's well over 100 that I competed in. And my great friend Ted Dwyer, he was the best creator of show jumping and World Cups in not only Australia, New Zealand, and up in Asia. And Ted done a remarkable job for show jumping in this country, and I thank him. And the World Cup has been a great competition for the younger riders, and most of the younger riders, all they want to do is compete in the World Cup, which is great.
I have spoken to a couple of people about their regard of the master, John Fahey, and your son, Tim. You know, this amazes me about yourself. He said, Dad's such a great bloke. He mentioned the times you've had with horses and times you've ridden, but he came out with a statement, Dad's like my brother. And that really hit me. You know, if you all you want as a parent is to have that sort of comment from your children. And I just think to myself, here you are, this sportsman of repute all around the world, and your son says, Dad and I are like brothers. That's an amazing testament to your character.
Yes, we were a great family, and Tim and Nick we're still very, very, very close. And we travelled together and competed against each other, and the relationship and the guidance that I tried to hand over to them is still carrying on today, which is I'm very proud of them, both of them.
Good. Art Utendale, I spoke about before. To me, was sort of in that Peter Robeson mould. Back in the day, come over from the Netherlands, had a real finesse and style about him. And I know that Art and yourself buddied up quite a bit. With Kerry, Art would come to Taree, and you'd loose jump horses together. But if I may, I just asked Art, who gets many plaudits on how he rode. But I asked him about yourself and how he would describe you. And he said he got nothing but admiration for you, John. And I'll quote him here, such a natural horseman with an amazing eye and so brave. His ability to ride and win with all types of horses speaks for itself. And I just thought, coming from Art, who's just 90 now, you're turning 80, I believe. That era was fantastic for jumping as a whole. And I wonder how those sorts of comments reflect back on you. Is that something that you push for, to put yourself and get recognised on that sort of level?
No, I appreciate Art's words, because Art and I were very, very close, great friends. And he when he was in Victoria, I used to go and stay with him, and he used to give me lessons and help me out. And we still got that bond today. No, I didn't. Oh, well, I set goals in the beginning. I set a goal that I wanted to represent Australia. That was my first goal.
Yes.
And then when the World Cup comes, I said, well, I want to compete. I want to represent Australia in World Cups. And I think, with the younger rider today, my advice was, set yourself a goal, work hard, and try and achieve your goal. Brilliant words.
As I wind up the interview, it is about the individuals. It's about Katie, Edwina next week riding in the individual show jumping qualifiers and hopefully getting through to the final. This whole interview is about you and recognising you as the individual. And I thought it would be great perhaps just to talk to one more person about you. And I thought if we could talk to the reigning Olympic gold medalist in the individual, one Mr. Skelton, Skelly to his mates, Nick Skelton on the wonderful Big Star. Yeah. And my mate Alan Fazakli, I put this to us, and I was interviewing Johnny Fay, and I'd like to get a comment from Nick. And Nick was glorious with his time with me. We tracked him down in Tokyo, where he's there helping his partner Laura jump on the US team. And I asked him about you, John, and how the reigning Olympic champion, gold medalist, thinks of our John Fay. And he was gushing with plaudits, but particularly he made the point that, again, like Art, what a fantastic horseman, a world-class horseman, a world-class mate. He referred back to the times when you would go over to the Edgars and camp there in your time in the UK, and Nick would be a youngster there. And into that note, Nick described a horse that he then rode in young rider classes in the UK called Red Baron, a horse of yours. Do you remember Red Baron?
Yes, I remember Red Baron. Yes, I took him over there in 1972 with Warwick, and I went back to England and Ireland in 2018, and I caught up with Nick, and we had a bit of a discussion about him riding that horse, actually.
Well, of course, famously, Warwick went on to Tony Newbury, Skelly here with Red Baron, but and then just closing, Nick went on to say, to wish you all the very best in the interview because you're worthy of the subject. He was a great mate of yours, obviously. A great horseman, can ride anything, that bloke, is from Nick Skelton. He mentioned to me also that he caught up with you at Dublin Show a couple of years ago.
Yeah, 2018.
Yeah. And I just said to myself, well, I wonder if, you're semi-retired now and so is Nick, if we put it out there that there could be, after this COVID has all finished, a tour to Dublin Show led by John Fay and Nick Skelton. I think that would rate the house down. It'd be amazing sort of a tour, and maybe something you should think about. But wonderful, John. People like Skelly, people like Art, your own family, and obviously a massive fan base here in Australia. Once again, your individual winning in Tokyo with Bonvale, still the best that Australia's ever produced. One final word for the girls going into next week. Have you got something you would like just to pass on very simply?
Well, I just would like them to go well, wish them the best of luck, and hope they survive the bigger tracks and get into the jump off. And I know they both will do Australia proud, and I just wish them the best of luck and hope they can grab a medal. It'd be great. I'd be so pleased for them. Superb.
Well, from myself, Martin Costello, and John Fay, we'll sign off. If Edwina and Katie get to watch this interview prior to their ride, which I hope they do, I've only got one thing to say, and that is, go Australia.
Go Australia. Good luck.